The spring 2023 anime season is coming to a close, and with that, I am finally here to give you guys my top 10 anime of the season. Now, I won't claim that the spring season was plentiful in how many great shows it had, but it did have a handful of shows that were, for me, indisputable. They were the best of the season. And I think the thing that makes it more special is the fact that these shows are kind of out of the norm. We get a lot of seasons where it feels like it's samey. Even though they're really good shows, they're sort of fitting the market. Yes, a very strong season for things like slice of life and romance. But whether you like action, mecha, romance, slice of life, whatever it is, I think this top 10 list is going to be a really interesting one for you, to make sure that you don't miss the best shows of the season. As with all my lists, definitely go down in the comments down below and let me know what your top shows are for the season. I always love hearing from you guys, and it's always good for other people to see what other people like besides just me, which is really mean. With that said, let's jump into my top 10 anime of the spring 2023 anime season. Kicking things off with my number 10, I have My Clueless First Friend. This series was so heartwarming. It's really a nice series to sort of get outside of the mold of your typical shows. Focusing on a transfer student named Takada and his fascination with a girl named Nishimura. See, Nishimura is being bullied by the rest of the school itself. Everybody sees her as cursed. They call her the Shinigami. But Takada is a little bit clueless in the idea that he thinks it's amazing. That's so cool. She's a Shinigami. She can curse me. That's amazing. And what kind of comes from this is this aspect of everybody sort of bullying Nishimura, and Takada sort of diffusing the situation every single time. Every time they confront Takada, they say, "What are you doing? She's gonna curse you." And he goes, "Oh, that's amazing. She shouldn't wear cute clothes because she's a Shinigami." And he goes, "Wow, did you hear that? They said that you're cute." It's that kind of stuff that is really heartwarming and just brings a smile to my face. There was so many moments in it that were just these really positive moments. Now, the only reason that it's down in my 10 slot is because, yes, at times this formula gets a little repetitive. But overall, it kind of did a good job of every now and then shifting the narrative so that it didn't get too stale. It's just a very positive message, and I loved every minute of it. For my number 9, I have Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury Season 2. Now, this series is a really great Gundam series. I really did enjoy it. I can't say that it's up there as one of the best Gundams out there. Obviously not. There's a lot of really good ones out there. But especially with Season 2, we had a lot of answers that we were kind of searching for quite a while. I mean, this has kind of been a series that has been kind of fun to try to figure out what's going on in the background. And ultimately, when it does get to that point where it starts to reveal things, it was quite rewarding. The concept here is that mankind has gone into space. You have these big corporations that sort of produce mobile suits, which mobile suits are these gigantic mechas. You have different technologies to pilot those mobile suits, including one called Gundam. And Gundam is pretty much being gotten rid of at the very beginning of the series. It's being outlawed. And sort of the tragedy that follows that outlawing, that very violent outlawing of the Gundam technology, it cuts forward to a child of one of the people involved with that going to this new school. And the school is run by the different corporations that make mobile suits. There's a lot of focus on the company, the Benerick company, that kind of has all these different companies underneath it that each make their own mobile suits. Technology of past, and yes, the revenge story that kind of comes with what happened at the very beginning. Sueta as a main character was a huge departure from your typical Gundam series. An overly timid female character. And I felt it was very refreshing. Although the reason why it's only number 9 on my list is mainly because the main character, Sueta, they didn't do enough with her. Though that does mean that a lot of the side characters were really strong. It's got a really solid cast to it that each and every single one of them have their own drives and their own greeds and whatnot. We still don't know if we're going to get another season of this, but I'd be open up for it. Moving on to my number 8, I have My Love Story with Yamada-kun at level 999. This was a shock for me, honestly, because early on with this series, I wasn't really feeling it. You have this girl who gets broken up by her boyfriend, and she's kind of slouching around and is upset, obviously, at this breakup. And she ends up pulling into her situation this boy that is a very popular FPS player. But slowly, I grew to love the main character. Yes, I felt her suffering, but I almost kind of relate to her in that desire to sort of fill in that empty gap with something else. She gets invested in this game, meets the guild members, does real life meetups with them, and eventually, underneath all of this, slowly you see this relationship building between her and this gamer. But what kind of surprised me about the series, that towards the later part of it, it actually did something very interesting with the characters. This gamer, Yamada, seems like he's very antisocial. And so it kind of makes you beg the question of, does this guy even care about the main character? But again, it kind of shocked me. It took it from a very interesting direction, and ultimately in the end was very, very satisfying. In a nutshell, had a rough start, I fell in love with the characters, and then ultimately had a really impactful ending. Moving on to my number 7, I have Insomniac's After School. This show was so beautiful. It follows a guy named Nakami, and he has insomnia, as the title would lead you to believe. By chance encounter, he meets Magari, who also has insomnia. And for the beginning section, you sort of see how the two of them sort of come together in a common goal to find sleep. Finding the root cause, or at least finding comfort in each other when they can't sleep at night. And while I will say the third quarter was a little bit of a letdown, overall, and the later segments of it was really impactful. These characters are really believable. The writing and the dialogue and the developments between them is really solid. It gives off a natural air, a believable air of real kids just trying to find some sort of relief. It's always a great message when you have two people who are suffering with something, finding a common comfort in each other, leaning on each other and trying to figure life out. And Insomniac's After School really nailed that. Plus, Magari is super cute. Magari is super cute. Leading Films did an excellent job putting this series together. Visually loved it. For my number 6, I have Vinland Saga 2nd Season. Another fantastic season of Vinland Saga that I have grown to love the writing in full on, full through. While many claim that Vinland Saga 2nd Season was going to be a Snorefest farmland saga, what I found in there was really the nugget of it, which is character developments. Characters. My gosh. I cannot express enough that this writer knows how to really kind of flesh characters out and really bring them to life. And I really do feel the setting was perfect to see these characters change. The first season was violent. Thorfinn's experiences was extremely violent, and he really needed a cooldown period to sort of make him reflect on his life. That's ultimately what happens here. Tilling up and rebuilding a land for the sake of farming, being teamed up with somebody who has suffered exactly what he was causing. It's that self-reflection and how MAPPA themselves portrayed that, which was really, really beautiful. The only thing that would really make this series my number 1 of the season would be if they cut down the episodes, because I felt like a lot of the scenes were really drug out. But they're very beautiful scenes, so if you're somebody that loves beautiful directings and scenic shots, it nails it. I cannot wait to see where this series goes from here. Moving on to my number 5, I have Skip and Loafer. From the beginning of the season, I absolutely fell in love with Skip and Loafer. And I wasn't really sure if I was going to because the style of it wasn't to my taste. But I think PA Works really did bring it to life. And it's a style that, honestly, in the end, really did capture the mood and the comedy and everything that's within the series. This is literally Character Study 101. Bringing a country bumpkin into the bustling city of Tokyo to go to a school and seeing how much of a culture shock she experiences. Coming from a remote village where she felt everybody was friends to a place where it feels like everybody's at each other's throats. Everybody wants to be popular. They have expectations, ambitions to be the most popular person, and they all wear masks. But what's interesting about the series is that it has this country bumpkin that's able to sort of welcome anybody into her group. And despite the fact that everybody finds comfort in being around her because she's so welcoming and because she sort of makes people feel comfortable, but everybody's not comfortable with each other. So that's where you see that clashing of what everybody thinks of each other. And with that, you would assume that it's a very drama-heavy series, but it's not. There's no melodrama here. The characters figure each other out. They talk for the most part. And in the end, you see these developments in the characters that ultimately made me fall in love with every single one of them. I felt their issues. Even the nastier characters, I understood why they were that way. And having them see it blow up in their face so that they can ultimately see what they're doing wrong. The only real negative of this series is the fact that the ending felt a little anticlimactic. I didn't so much see the main character herself see any sort of climax. It's just more of a side character finally having at least one thing answered, but not necessarily resolved. I really do hope that PA Works does another season of the series and doesn't just leave it at this. But still, in the end, I love the show. For my number 4, I have Ranking of Kings, The Treasure Chest of Courage. I cannot get enough of Ranking of Kings. I absolutely love the first season, and honestly, my minor issues with the first season was technically answered with this show. It being mostly comprised of skipped content from the first season. And despite maybe 1 or 2 episodes early on, every episode I ate it all up. Because this series is so good with characters. So many people within this kingdom that ultimately have their own drives and desires, which person they feel needs to be king, what the prospective kings themselves believe they want for the country, other countries and their kings and the issues they're dealing with. Having such dynamic characters that you understand what their driving force is, and sometimes seeing when that driving force changes. And getting extra perspective on all those characters in this season was really fantastic. And yes, the later parts, getting some additional content beyond the first season that I just ate it up. Again, I love Rank of the Kings. I will consume any medium of it, and I cannot wait for more. Now we get into my top 3 anime of the spring 2023 anime season, and this was really, really difficult. All 3 of these literally are number 1. They're right next to each other. Like, I can't say why one is better than the other. They're equally amazing for their own reasons, and I'll get into each one of those reasons. But ultimately, I settled on number 3 as being Dangers in My Heart. The Dangers in My Heart is an absolutely phenomenal series. This is easily one of my best slice of life romance sort of comedy series that I have ever watched. This is definitely one of those series that is somewhere on my top favorite animes of all time. It's got to fit somewhere in there. And it's so shocking because I had 0 expectations for the show. I just assumed, here's the waifu show this season. Yamada's super hot. She's goofy. Everybody loves her. But no. This show is so good. And it takes a while too. This is a slow burn show. First 2 episodes was like, okay, again, this is a waifu show. But then something happens. Something happens to the main girl, Yamada. And it changes Ichikawa, the main character, how he perceives her. And from that point on, from that episode, every single episode got better and better and better. I never thought that I would ever make an episode-by-episode impressions of a romance slice of life. This show did it, because there was so much to dig into. This show is perfection for 3 main reasons. The studio and the director did an amazing job of portraying the story and the emotional beats. With Yamada not having inner dialogue that we get to hear, we see through her body language itself, the subtleties in her turns and stuff like that. And third is the music. The music enhanced every single emotional moment of the series, hitting you in the gut and making you feel what the characters are feeling. There's so much focus on not just romance, not just discovering love, but self-doubt. And even more so, self-hate, and sort of learning to love yourself even before you can choose to love somebody else. It's super impactful, and I loved every single minute of it. For my number 2, I have Heavenly Delusion. This show is so freaking good. It is so rare that we have a mystery, sci-fi, horror type show in anime, even though it's so prime for it. And what made Heavenly Delusion so fantastic is that mystery element. I love shows that constantly have me questioning what's going on. What is the root cause of this issue? What exactly is going on in the background? One of those types that you can sort of piece things together, and when it sort of reveals it, it feels rewarding. You essentially have 2 storylines here. One is this nursery where it's like this enclosed place where these kids are being raised. And then you have the perspective outside the facility, which is post-apocalyptic. It's just the world is destroyed, and people are just kind of scrounging to survive. And in the midst of it are the man-eaters, which are these monsters that consume humans. It's sort of dog-eat-dog world versus just sanitation and comfort. And seeing these 2 stories being told simultaneously and trying to figure out the connection between the 2 of them and what happened in the past, what caused all of this, was where the mystery was at. And honestly, it was one of the most beautifully animated shows of the season by far. I can't recommend this show enough. If you like mystery, if you like trying to figure out what's going on, this is the show for you. There's so much to consume here. And I think the only reason this one wouldn't end up on my number 1 is because the ending created more questions than answered, and honestly, it felt a little wrong. Not to say that I wasn't satisfied in the end. The overall journey was amazing. And I want to jump into the manga so bad. And yes, finally, for my number 1, it's going to be no shock to anybody. I'm not even going to do a joke because everybody's like, yeah, it's a joke, whatever. Yes, my number 1 of the spring 2023 anime season is Oshinoko. This show was so freaking phenomenal. An amazing series. Honestly, I keep saying it and I'll say it again. I believe that Aka Akasaka's move from being a mangaka, both artist and writer, going to strictly writing was the best move he ever made. While I love Kaguya-sama Love is War, this is a sign of how genius this writer is when he could just focus on writing. What Oshinoko essentially is a deep dive into the darkest corners of the entertainment industry in Japan. And for someone like myself who has spent quite a bit of time looking into Japanese entertainment industry, I can honestly say This stuff is hitting the nail on the head every single time. And honestly, Aka Akasaka himself admitting that these are often based on his own experiences. Stalkers and hate messages and stuff like that that all come with being a star or an actress or a performer. I don't want to get into the full details of the story itself because this is an easy one to sort of spoil some really key storyline beats. You're essentially following a character who's trying to investigate something in the entertainment industry itself, getting different vantage points from idols to reality TV shows to TV dramas and so on and so forth, all the while meeting different actors and performers and seeing how the industry itself almost chews up and spits people out. Whether it's Kana, who was a child actress who was big at the time, growing up and never really seeing that success ever again, someone being destroyed by social media after an occurrence on a TV show, the expectations that the industry itself gives you, and ultimately how it takes advantage of you. Again, each one of these stories is so beautifully told, and yes, so real. The drama, the writing, the characters, everything was on point. There was so many episodes that afterwards I just felt drained because I felt not only that it's impactful, but that it's real. While hard to stomach sometimes, there's a lot of very important commentary in here. And if you've never really checked out the entertainment industry, I think this is a really insightful one to check out. Just be aware there's a lot of very heavy subject matter in here. And that is it. That is my top 10 anime of the spring 2023 anime season. My honorable mentions, I have My Home Hero. That show, I still suggest people checking out the manga instead. The beginning section of it was just kind of rough, and it wasn't the best animated show ever, but I still liked the cat and mouse game. It's a really interesting story about a dad just trying to cover up this person he killed because he was protecting his daughter. Dr. Stone New World, I still love that series. It's just a lot of entertainment there, but it's never my favorite show ever. I just really enjoy watching it. Magical Destroyers, I loved like 3 episodes of it, but the rest of it just didn't really work for me. But those 3 episodes were excellent. I love its nature of otakus just rising up. Kamikatsu, it started out really dumb and raunchy, and I just loved it for that, but it kind of petered off in the later parts. The humor just started losing me. And finally, Why Reliana ended up at the Duke's Mansion. I absolutely adored this show for the longest time, but at some point, it just kind of shrugged at the end, and that's the downer for me. I almost wanted to put it in my top 10 list just because I love the chemistry, I love the characters themselves, but in the end, it just kind of was a little bit of a letdown in the end. I still want to check out the manhwa, like, really badly. I'm really hoping it just gets another season. And that's it. That's all the shows I'm going to go over. I'm going to put a bow on the spring 2023 anime season. We're going to finally store that away and move on into the summer season. So I hope you guys will join me for that. I'll be doing first impressions of all the shows coming up. If you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you don't miss that stuff. Additionally, I do news and reviews. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Also, before you leave, don't forget to go down below and leave me a comment. Let me know what your most favorite shows are of the spring season. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support it more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, and membership button down below. I greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel. It means so much to me, and y'all take care.